This video was made possible by Brilliant. We encounter them all throughout the day, but you probably don't think about them much unless there's a problem. The rituals, devices, and spaces for expelling waste from the human body are so ubiquitous that they just seem natural. Like, how could it be any other way? And it's true, the toilet that we know here in the US hasn't changed much for around 100 years. But even these do look and work slightly differently from the toilet of, say, Germany. And at other points in history, toilets have taken on a wide variety of shapes, sizes, and locations. All of this is determined by prevalent cultural and technological conditions, but also as a result of our changing understanding of the human body and expectations for our privacy. Did you know that Roman toilets would have been located in the kitchen? Even today, though, it's coming to light that this setup, with us sitting down on a seat with a hole cut in it, might actually be doing our body harm. There may be better ways to do our business. And while some might think all is settled in our way of doing things, toilet rooms and public spaces have been in the news a lot these days. They've become an important site at the collision between human rights and politics. Along our journey to get to this point, a number of very famous architects have questioned our toilet-going experience, with more than a few declaring that the toilet and its room the most important part of a building. Buckminster Fuller went so far as to call an entire house a decorated nozzle on the end of a sewer. Wannabe architects get into the action too.
Lincoln Center, Alice Tully Hall, the Met. Magnificent facilities.
In this video, we're going to take a close look at the toilet and the room it's in. We'll survey why they are the way they are and how they got there. And finally, we'll take a look at some alternatives that are coming down the pipe that may ultimately be better for everyone. Despite its reverence by some, toilets and toilet rooms tend to be the butt of jokes in the education of architects. The joke goes that in school you're taught all of these highly conceptual and abstract skills in design only to take your first job drawing toilet room details. The dimensions of a proper bathroom stall to accommodate differently abled folks with wheelchairs becomes seared into your brain. That 5-foot turning radius and grab bar locations can be located with our eyes closed. All these things are dictated by codes, in this case the Americans with Disability Act, which requires companies to provide goods and services to the public. These spaces are also dictated by things like plumbing codes, electrical codes, lighting codes, fire codes, you name it, and there's probably a code that regulates it. The bathroom is one of the most architecturally regulated spaces in the world. All this regulation might make you think that this is the only way that it can be. Any small change to the established system seems outrageously misguided, or at least inconvenient. But these codes arrived to us through trial and error, over years of incremental changes, punctuated by relatively sudden shifts and experimentation. Other cultures have very different standards that, to us in our day and age, might seem unimaginable. For instance, you might have seen images of Roman communal toilets. These were often attached to public baths, whose water was used to flush down the filth. I, from my 21st century vantage point, can't imagine using a facility like this. I'd probably just hold it in until I got home. But this wasn't necessarily the norm in Roman times either, and it was certainly a class-based situation. It turns out that class and wealth would have dictated your experience with toilets and bathrooms for most of history. Facilities for rich folks would have been quite different from toilets for everyone else. The word latrine or latrina would have been used for a toilet in one's home, while foricae were the public ones attached to baths. Romans would have used a tersorium, or a sponge on a stick to clean up. And you may also have had a depiction of the goddess Fortuna to gaze upon while you were seated. This was believed to ward off evils. While this site provided the spiritual tools necessary for casting off our wastes, the Romans, of course, also had a vast network of water channels, aqueducts, and terracotta-lined plumbing for transporting the liquid and solid stuff to and from buildings. Advanced as they were, carrying heavy solids through these systems wasn't particularly efficient. They would have been pretty smelly and required attention and maintenance to keep working properly. In fact, methane buildups would often cause explosions in the streets if this maintenance wasn't kept up with. Despite this, if your latrine was connected to the city's sewage system, it would have likely been located near or in the kitchen area. There would not have been a private room dedicated to defecation. While Romans get a lot of credit for their plumbing prowess, the waterborne toilet was likely invented in India centuries earlier, around 2500 BC. But much of this knowledge was either lost or forgotten. So various aspects of today's technology was invented and reinvented multiple times in different places throughout history. The same is true for the first flush toilet, which was invented by Sir John Harrington in 1596. It was called the Ajax, but instead of flushing into pipes, it went directly into a cesspool. But this design didn't catch on to become the norm for two main reasons. Firstly, the role of germs and mechanisms of disease transmission weren't yet known, so the importance of the hygienic qualities of this setup didn't really factor into the benefits of it at the time. And probably most importantly, royalty and nobility were used to having the toilet come to them, not them going to the toilet. A statically located toilet was simply less dignified than a servant bringing a chamber pot to them when it was needed. But incremental advancements continued to bring the toilet closer to the one that we know and love today. Inventions like the S-bend to trap gases from wafting back up was an important one. Then came the flushing room toilet in 1824. If you had one of these in your home, it would have been called a water closet. The word toilet was still reserved for dressing tables and washstands. The water closet also looked more like a piece of furniture. The entire room would have been richly decorated and resembled the chamber pots of old and included a carved or stained woodwork. That is, until Thomas Crapper's patent for his version of the flush toilet design in 1897, which coincided with the increased awareness of the role of hygiene in our overall health. These factors lead to the greatest amounts of regulation and standardization that we see today. These standards were also made possible because of a more robust urban infrastructures that were capable of handling such loads. For instance, here in Chicago, many know of the story of raising the city during the mid-1800s in order to lay the foundation for its plumbing and sewage systems. Throughout the 1900s, a time marked by the Industrial Revolution and modernism, fascination with toilets and the spaces for accommodating them run rampant. This is also the time of the United States' major urban growth, which was able to incorporate modern approaches to plumbing as it was building up. This included subtle shifts in the toilet design that we take for granted today. Washout designs, which gravity feeds water, were replaced with washdown and siphon jet models, which we use today. This sucks the water down rather than pushing it down. Low tanks also replaced high tanks, and this pretty much gives us the toilet that we know and love. Famous architects of the modern movement, like Adolf Loos, believed that there would be no 19th century without the plumber, and that was the most important occupation. He called plumbers the pioneers of cleanliness. In an attempt to rally his fellow Austrians to give plumbers their due respect, he wrote, "We have remained backward. Some time ago, I asked an American lady what seemed to her the most noticeable difference between Austria and America. Her answer, the plumbing." Le Corbusier also believed the toilet was one of the most beautiful objects ever produced, and he would treat bathroom fixtures like art objects, placed in the middle of spaces to appreciate it like a sculpture. Then of course there's Duchamp, but that's another story. Architects like Buckminster Fuller were interested in completely revolutionizing how we live and build by centering these around the toilet and the washroom. He developed the Dymaxion bathroom, a prefabricated modular home accessory that could almost be considered as a miniature house all in itself. The toilet was treated like the heart of the house and a destination. The room seems to spring out of the toilet with walls that seamlessly fold out from it. The room was like one's own personal cave. It was molded to conform to the human body and would have been heated to 98.6 degrees to eliminate any temperature gradient between it and your skin. Each occupant of the house would have their very own bathroom tailored just to them. And he went so far as to treat the entire room like you would a bed or other piece of large furniture. You would take it with you as you moved between houses.
With modern materials and technology, we can apply to houses the same efficiency of engineering that we apply to suspension bridges and airplanes.
This design concept was conceived for a particular application, but he believed that it should be widely adopted.
These are the two bedrooms, each with its own bath.
Interestingly, the design was also featured in the New York Museum of Modern Art in 1939, which I think reveals just how connected art and function and sanitation were at the time. Fuller's argument for paying such special attention to this area of the house included the observation of the etymological connection between the words sane and sanitary. He believed that psychology and psychiatry were only invented because of bad plumbing in bodies and in buildings. He said the space of sanitation is part of the brain, contributing to the unique growth of the individual mind. While this might sound a little bit strange, today is becoming accepted that the gut biome plays a crucial role in our overall physical and mental health. The design of toilets and the bathrooms that accommodate them seem a little static these days. Gone are the real experiments of Buckminster Fuller, or even the adoption of wild colors like that were popular in the 60s and 70s. But some argue that questioning our assumptions around bathroom design is just as important today as it's ever been. Rem Koolhaas, for instance, believes that the toilet is the fundamental zone of interaction on the most intimate of level between humans and architecture. At the same time, he argues that the American toilet, with its attendant behavior, Wet for evacuating into and dry for cleansing, is on the brink of completion. The model it depends on, abundant water, sophisticated plumbing, large-scale sewage systems, is increasingly unsustainable and unaffordable. Much of the modern work on toilets is about making them less reliant on large-scale centralized systems for their operation. This way, communities that are unable to invest in expensive, systemic changes might still benefit from the health benefits of modern waste processing. The Gates Foundation has challenged scientists to invent this kind of technology, and people like environmental scientist Michael R. Hoffman have taken up the charge. He's working on a self-contained toilet wastewater treatment system. Or maybe you've seen composting toilets, a dry toilet that use anaerobic decomposition of bacteria and microorganisms to break down waste. The end result is a compost that can be safely used as fertilizer in a garden or other outdoor space. A close look and survey of different situations around the world also reveals subtle changes that are interesting to note. European countries, for instance, have a robust network of public toilets that one must pay to use. The fee goes towards their maintenance.
We don't want private ones. We want a public toilet. A public toilet is what they want.
In Stockholm, Sweden, you might find a self-cleaning toilet seat. And in Japan, you might find a high-tech toilet with a bidet and all sorts of electronic niceties. You might also find a squat toilet inset into the floor. While bathrooms are regulated and standardized, there is room for and even the need for reconsidering how we do things. People like Alexander Kira notes that we must begin to think of hygiene facilities as an important part of the home and as an important aspect of our daily lives, rather than as a necessary evil to be accommodated according to the dictates of some obsolete handbook or drawing template in whatever space is left over with whatever part of the budget is minimally required to meet legal standards. And I'm eager to get to it. All this talk about the geometry and sizes of things in toilet rooms reminded me of the group theory course that I recently explored over on Brilliant. It broke down some university-level concepts of mathematical symmetries, a concept that I only knew in architectural terms. I learned all about the numbers of symmetries in figures, just like the kinds of figures that I might find in architectural spaces. Brilliant structure allows you to find all kinds of parallels between stuff that you're already interested in while discovering new and fascinating ways of understanding the world through STEM subjects. With Brilliant's hands-on approach, you'll learn by doing, and there's a community of like-minded learners that are there to help keep you engaged. The courses have storytelling, interactive challenges, and problems to solve, and they have all kinds of STEM subjects to choose from. Maybe you want to learn about computer science or math. Brilliant has something for everyone. And look, I am not a puzzler at all, but the way that Brilliant wraps it up in such an engaging package has me coming back on my computer or on my phone all throughout the day. If you've got a free moment, pop back in and learn a little bit more. And you can too, while getting 20% off of your annual premium subscription if you're one of the first 200 people to go to brilliant.org/Stewart Hicks to sign up today. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. You'll be rewarded with bi-weekly videos on the built environment just like this one. While you're waiting for the next one, check out some of these others. See you over there.